Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2 are considered two of Rockstar Games' best works, if not two of the best games of all time. But before we had John Marston and Arthur Morgan stories, we had a bounty hunter named Red Harlow. There's actually a pretty interesting story behind Red Dead Revolver's development. The game was initially a Capcom property and was set to be developed by Angel Studios, which was later rebranded into Rockstar San Diego. At first it was going to be called SWAT, where you could play as 4 members of a SWAT team with a 4-person split screen. The idea for a Western setting came later, which was when SWAT then became an acronym for Spaghetti Western Action Title. Clever, huh? Capcom's idea for a Western-inspired arcade shooter would have only taken a loose inspiration from Old West movies and culture, as opposed to the grittier and more realistic setting that the Red Dead series is now known for. The original concept would have included elements such as a character that could fly and Mexican bandits with 4-foot-long mustaches. Meanwhile, Angel Studios wanted something more grounded and realistic, and these creative differences between the two led to the game entering development hell. When Rockstar later acquired Angel Studios, they saw potential in Red Dead's concept, as the idea hadn't really been explored all that much in games. Once they gained the rights to it, they retooled the unfinished game into something that was more in line with what's now Rockstar San Diego's original vision, while still keeping Capcom's idea for an arcade-style action shooter. They also fine-tuned the apparently rough controls that were present in the game's early build. The game opens with our protagonist Red Harlow greeting his father, who's here to share the good news that he struck gold. Unfortunately, good things hardly ever last in these kinds of settings, and Red's parents are soon killed, leaving him orphaned. Eventually, he grows from an excitable young lad into a stoic and rugged bounty hunter of few words. If that sounds familiar, then that's probably because Red was heavily inspired by Clint Eastwood's character The Man with No Name from the Dollars trilogy of Western films, which is one of many homages to the genre you'll see. The gameplay is a bit different than what you're probably familiar with when it comes to Red Dead. For one, there's no open world, although there is the town of Brimstone where you can wander around between playing certain chapters. Most of the gameplay has you set in a linear location where you need to accomplish particular objectives, a lot of which involves you shooting a bunch of people. Killing people gives you money, and the better you are at killing them, then the more money you'll earn. You can then use your newly acquired fistful of dollars to buy things before each chapter begins, such as new weapons, weapon repairs, and characters for multiplayer mode. While there might not be an enormous open world for you to explore, that doesn't mean there isn't any fun to be found. The gameplay is fast-paced with solid controls, and provides plenty of challenge. Healing items are pretty scarce, as is often the case with arcade-style games, so you'll need to act quickly, but also carefully. While some chapters could get quite tough, especially the ones with few or no checkpoints, I was eventually able to find the right plan of action to succeed. The only negative aspect of the gameplay I found was its stealth mechanics, which are very basic with extremely limited options for stealthy combat. Luckily, stealth hardly ever comes into play, and most of the game's combat is action-focused. You can also use the now iconic Deadeye mechanic to slow things down and assist you with more precise shots. Similarly, you also find yourself involved in duels on occasion, where you have to quickly mark your targets before they kill you first. The game is also pretty short, and can be completed in about 10 hours. However, there's also plenty of replay value. Beating the game will unlock Bounty Hunter mode, where you can replay certain chapters to complete new challenges and earn rewards. Replaying can also earn you more money to continue to unlock journal entries and multiplayer characters. But for as different as Red Dead Revolver's gameplay may be when compared to later entries, there are even more elements that have become synonymous with the brand. An immense amount of detail is given to the game's atmosphere in order for it to feel like a true homage to the spaghetti western. You've got revolvers, of course, railroad trains, stagecoaches, saloons, duels, and just about everything else that one would associate with the western film setting. There's also a grainy filter that's present during cutscenes, along with motion capture animation and strong voice acting. Each level is uniquely designed and highly detailed, which makes playing the game feel all the more authentic and immersive. Even the main menu looks great. Seriously, this might just be one of the best main menus for a game I've ever seen. The soundtrack is also fantastic, which makes the gameplay very exciting and cinematic. It's clear that a lot of care was put into the atmosphere, which is something that continued throughout the series. Of course, a western setting is just as much about its characters as it is about its set pieces. Red Harlow might not be as layered as a protagonist as John Marston or Arthur Morgan, but he's a memorable character nonetheless that fits right into the setting. He's also joined by a diverse cast of supporting characters, who each have their own playable level with their own unique abilities and weapons. You can also learn more about them by reading the journal entries in the main menu. While they don't get a whole lot of screen time, they still leave a memorable impression. Although it is a bit of a shame that we didn't get to see more of them in the game's campaign. I guess that's something that Rockstar thought too, as a sequel game supporting casts are stronger and seen more during the story. You can even see some of Capcom's initial ideas for wacky characters with some of the more eccentric antagonists. Red Dead Revolver is a bit of a different experience than the Redemption games, but at the same time there are many things that will be quite familiar. You can clearly see how Rockstar took everything that made the game so memorable and unique, and expanded upon it in later entries with its strong attention to detail and narrative. And while I love Capcom's games as much as the next person, I'm glad that Rockstar decided to make it more grounded, while still giving it a distinct identity. And even with Rockstar's input, you can still see environments and character designs directly taken from Capcom's original concept, so their influence wasn't completely lost. Overall, the game aged pretty well, and I would definitely recommend playing Red Dead's roots for yourself. Thanks so much for watching! If you enjoyed the video, be sure to click like, and subscribe if you want to see more.